More on how the coronavirus outbreak is impacting the restaurant industry. I'm joined by Aaron Allen from Chicago. Aaron is a global restaurant consultant. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rachelle.
So let's start with the impact of the virus specifically on Asian restaurants. Obviously, we saw a lot of backlash and a lot of xenophobia.
It is, and it's happening here in the United States, but really this is a global issue. We've got about a $90 trillion GDP, about 3.5 trillion of that is the global consumer food service industry. Here in the United States, it's about $900 billion of the US economy. And so 15.9 million workers, this has hit them so quickly, and the restaurant operators, that they haven't even adjusted their shifts and schedules yet to respond to it. They've really never seen anything like this before, and I think it's going to have a tremendous, in fact, devastating effect on several categories of consumer food service here in the U.S.
We've certainly seen with the increased calls for social distancing, some individual states sort of taking matters into their own hands. How has the industry as a whole really been affected by this?
Well, it might seem strange with as much news as we've all seen on it, but we have clients around the globe, and literally a week ago, many of them were still very dismissive of what impact this might have, if any. Literally up to just moments ago, speaking with clients, they're not sure what to do with their schedules, with their shifts for next week. So there's not been a coordinated response for the industry. I'm concerned, we're greatly concerned that much of the industry is not prepared and is not retooling quickly enough. When you look at other industries that are impacted, they've made changes almost immediately. The airline industry laid off, in many cases, half their workforce, changed their schedules. The restaurant industry is still kind of waking up to this. So there will be some chains that will be leaders in this, that will respond, but it's happening very much individually at a unit level, at a chain level, not a coordinated industry effort yet to try to combat this. But 2 months, is what you could expect to have a 20 to 50% decrease in revenue. For many operators, they won't be able to sustain that. So overall, Americans will still eat, and just the way that they do that will be dramatically different.
Now, I want to look at the sorts of potential relief efforts or accommodations that are available for some of these staff, these workers. Obviously, you have restaurants of different sizes, local versus some of these chain restaurants as well.
Yeah, well, the majority of Americans, a $400 economic hit to them would be a catastrophe. And when you look at food service workers, that's about a 40-hour, a 1-week shift at $10 an hour. So when you look at 15.9 million people, somewhere around the neighborhood of 7 in 10 Americans have worked in a restaurant at some point in their lives, and 15.9 now. So they'll have to be moved, they'll have to be shifted, there'll have to be some government intervention, but the size of this would take something in the tens of billions of dollars per month to adjust. If you kind of look at the overall amount we spend on food in the country, 1.8 trillion, 900 billion of that in restaurants, that's somewhere around the range of $75 billion per month. With a 20 to 50% reduction in their revenue, that will mean immediate changes will need to happen to their P&L, to the way that they operate. The three biggest costs for a restaurant are food, labor, and occupancy, and all three of those will be pressured. Nearly a third of what they take in typically goes back out on the cost of labor. And so with revenues dropping so suddenly, if they don't make changes to the headcounts, for many it will be a very difficult thing for them to survive. Others with strong balance sheets are looking at a people-first approach, which makes a lot of sense for the hospitality industry, but others just won't be able to afford it.
So then what are some ways that regular customers can really help keep some of their local spots afloat, even if they aren't eating out in the restaurants right now?
Well, see, that's what is, quite unique about this, is we kind of think of how it might rebound or when it might rebound. In terms of what they can do, this is the first time really that the consumer has been asked to stay away from restaurants. So there'll need to be a lot of training, a lot of recalibration around safety, hygiene, sanitation, those sort of things will have to happen. But at the moment, this is such a global shock. Certainly people and health issues first, but from an economic and business point of view, this is unlike 9/11. This is really like the Spanish flu and the Great Depression hitting at the same time in terms of the effect that it will have on certain industries. So, it'll take a few months probably just to understand it. And so there are some government programs that it look like to give forgiveness on taxes. But if your revenues drop substantially, cuts in payroll taxes, cuts in sales tax won't be beneficial in the short term. So there's been a $1.5 trillion or so that's been injected to try to give forgiveness over the next couple of months for these operators. But even as of today, we had some clients that were in difficult situations, kind of looking to refinance. And last week, the banks were saying absolutely not. And this week, they're not returning phone calls.
Wow.
So I think that's just how sudden this all is in terms of trying to recalibrate. So this means these operators...
Certainly quite a shock. I'm sorry, unfortunately, we will have to leave it there. Thank you so much, global restaurant consultant